leveraging the latest technology to drive storytelling engagement and win over target audience. So the verdict is very clear. Gone are the days when the focus of advertising was directly on the product benefits, sung through an ad jingle. Now, storytelling is being increasingly employed to convey the brand message in more impactful way. And now, here is the more evident that the digital storytelling. So, to talk more about it, we have Miri Rodriguez from Microsoft Corporation to discuss on leveraging the latest technology. So, Miri, the platform is all yours.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Hi. Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we always have to deal with some technology. And that is the beauty of what we do in the technology world is that we try to connect from places like India and Jamaica, and I'm actually in Florida right now, but I live in Seattle, so United States. Just so many things happening at once, and it's such a great thing that we can all connect. But there's some little things that happen all the time that could be, a microphone or something that, but we're here, and I'm so glad that I'm able to actually share with you some insights about what we're doing at Storytelling at Microsoft. My name is Miri Rodriguez, as you already know, and I am a storyteller at Microsoft. And one of the things that I do is I tell stories in the IT side of Microsoft, not the brand side, which is a little bit interesting. And the reason for that is because the stories we're telling are the way that we're connecting with our customers at a deeper level. Everything has actually been reduced to data. Everything. In fact, I've seen with my own eyes the fact that the future is here. Robots and AR and machine learning, all these things are taking over, automation, and we're already seeing this in social media channels. We're already seeing this in marketing channels, and we're seeing how these new technologies and resources are helping us automate these new kind of minutia work that we do every day as marketers. And what that means is that the data that's happening is helping us move the way, change the way that we are marketing to our customers. So how do we use that? What can we do to use that technology, these resources that are happening when it's all being reduced to data? In fact, I had to ask myself that question. I had to say, in this transformation, this digital transformation that we're going through in the world, every brand is experiencing this more and more. No matter where you are in the world, you're going to start seeing things like devices and how you use the devices, connecting our customers together, talking. There's the targeted marketing, there's the social media marketing, there's the digital content marketing. So it's all taking place in this cloud world, right? And all this data is talking to each other. And we've seen things like, the data is moving from something like kilobytes, right, that we do earlier in the day, to something like yottabytes. I mean, this is stuff like a number I can't even pronounce. It's insane to think the amount of data that is moving in the cloud today, that we are moving in the cloud today. So I couldn't help but think, what does that mean to marketers? In fact, is it the end of marketers? Because the data that we're seeing that's happening, the cloud is gathering it, right? The machine learning is finding its patterns. The robots that exist today and are continuing to be built are making that actionable. The IoT, the Internet of Things, is actually automating its collection. For example, if you're connecting somewhere and I'm checking in somewhere else, it's connecting that information. It's saying, Miri checked in at this hotel and her friend also checked in, so they must be hanging out together in some city, right? And finally, AR and VR, virtual reality, these things are actually making it come alive. So again, I had to ask myself, wow, with all this data, automation, is it the end of marketers? The future's here, the robots are here, the machines are taking over. What's going to happen to us? They're doing things much better than anybody else. They have no human error when they're talking to our customers. But there's one thing that they can't do. There's one thing that they don't have, and that's heart. That's heart. And what heart can do that robots can't is they can actually do something that we've been doing as humans since the beginning of time, right? In the caveman days, we were telling stories. We were telling stories to survive. It really has preserved the humanity of our time since then. We would tell our kids and our kids, don't go there. There's a bit by wolf, right? To preserve our humanity. And in the digital age, I have to think the same way. I have to think that we as humans will be able to do something much different than robots can. While the robots are automating a whole lot of things for us, the one thing that they won't be able to do is tell a story. And that's why corporations like us, like Microsoft, have turned around in our model. We've changed essentially the way that we market to our customers, that we talk to our customers, that we connect with our customers. We no longer show up as the big tech giant who rolls out Windows 95 and you have to go buy it, right? We have players in our field that are competing, Apple, Amazon, right? We have people that are coming in and fiercely bringing other products that our consumer base, our market is playing in our field. So how do we stay connected? How do we stay relevant in this digital age as a company? Our corporation, our leaders decided, there's something that changes perception in marketing. It changes perception in people, and it's the one thing that I've been talking about, is story. So they've hired storytellers. In fact, that is my title. I am a storyteller. And so we tell stories because we know that it's the one thing that will differentiate content, that will make someone stop scrolling and make that click. And stories are being told in different ways all the time. Okay, there's different ways to tell a story. There's really not a right way or wrong way, I think, because everybody should really create and craft their own way of telling a story. But what you see here are basic models of storytelling. At the bottom right, you're going to see something like the Simba story or the hero journey model. You see a little lion there with a circle. And that's, in essence, what a lot of Hollywood movies are made, Marvel movies. A lot of songs are written about. Usually this kind of story, it's a kind of story where a main character is born in a village somewhere, and they are limited in some way, some kind of resources. They don't understand themselves. They're awkward in some way. They leave that place only to find themselves, right? And they discover their superpowers, they discover who they are. And by that, they understand that they have a mission, they have a purpose, and they come back to that village to fulfill that purpose. So that's the Simba or the Lion King story type model. On the far top left, you'll see the drama, kind of escalating model of story. If you're like me, you like drama, or you're a little bit dramatic, you like to kind of escalate and bring the customer to that point of, here's where we are as a company, and then kind of drop slowly as you take the customer through the journey of their experience with you, with the brand. So again, there's different ways, and this is not the only ways to tell a story. I was just giving you basic examples, and there's no wrong way, but there are some attributes that a story will have. And a good story will have a central character, of course, a suspense point, a foreshadowing, surprise factor, and a conclusion, of course. However, a great story for brands is a strategy. So when you're thinking about your brand, and you're thinking, does my brand have a story? Do we strategize around what our story is? It's a good question to ask yourself, because in today's world, our consumers are not listening anymore to the flash lights and the $9.99 sale. Our very smart consumers are connected. They're using devices to compare. They're using devices to talk to their friends and family on social media to find out more before they even make a purchase, right? So they're connecting with each other, and there's no emotional connection to the brand unless there's heart. So the strategy for a brand is really to understand the heart of your brand first, and how it portrays, how it opens up through story to your customers. It's a strategy. At Microsoft, as I said before, we can start with that strategy, right? Our first strategy, our mission, by our fearless leader, Bill Gates, initially was to put a PC in every household and every home in the 90s. And we absolutely accomplished that. And that's why we are here today. And that was a great thing. However, as we shifted and as we began to digitally transform, and as data began to take over, as algorithms began to take over, as automation began to take over, we realized, as I said, that there has to be a different way to connect with our customers, that it doesn't feel automated and robotic, that it feels authentic, that it feels heart. And Satya Nadella, our new CEO, he had the concept, he talked about that concept, and he changed slightly the messaging of our mission. No, today it is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And when you look at these two messages, you really have to understand that these are the same. These two are the same. They are the same because they talk about, how empowering someone is actually a piece in every household empowers people all over the world. I apologize for the hashtag. It says Iaruba. I thought I had changed it on that slide. That's not the hashtag for this presentation, but I hope that you're not focused on that. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miri. I'd love to connect with you. The PC in every household empowers everyone. But what changed for us in the mission of our story is that we went from a PC in every household to empowering every person. You see, the change was people. We changed the story by changing people. We placed people first in our story. And this is what we're doing. So this here is an example of one of our websites in the IT side of Microsoft. It's called IT Showcase. This is where my stories land, the stories that I write. And we're talking about how Microsoft is doing IT. Basically, we've made ourselves vulnerable. We've said, you know what? We don't have it all put together. By all means, we don't. We are trying. We're transforming. We're leading. But there's so much gap. There's so much area. There's so much land to explore in this digital transformation that we haven't yet explored. And we're trying and we're doing it. And this is how we're doing it. We're showcasing how we're doing that so other companies can understand how we're doing. Other people, other consumers can understand that we are a vulnerable brand. We're a human brand. There are people behind the technology. And we're putting the people at the forefront. We're talking to engineers that are driving cloud transformation. We sit down with them, we interview them, we put the stories out there so that people can understand it's not just an Azure type product, it's not just Office, it's not just Windows. Somebody behind that product has a family, they have a story, they have a personal conviction of why they work at Microsoft and perhaps not at Google. And that is what makes the difference. It's a story behind the product. It's how we're telling the stories of the product. We've realized that stories take people through a journey. It grabs them by the hand. It invites them to talk to us. It invites them to engage with us. And most importantly, we've realized that we are no longer the hero of that story. We're actually indeed the sidekick. We are the enabler to our customers. So as you think of your brand, whatever it is, you're going to say, well, Miri, you guys are Microsoft, you're big, you probably have a lot of budget. I'm just starting. I don't even know where to start. How do I even begin to craft my story? Your story is actually your brand mission. And every corporation, every organization should have a mission, of course. You have a mission statement of some sort. And when you do that, you think about what that mission is and how to craft that so that your customers can see and feel that mission palpably. That is what it is. And if you don't believe in that mission, then you probably should change it because you have to feel passionate about what your company is doing, how it's enabling someone, how your products and services are making the world better or someone better, how it's providing a solution. Think about what you do. Think about why you do it. That's your mission. And then you position it in a way that it's not about you. It's not our mission is to do this and this and that. Our mission is a huge mission statement that nobody can remember. A PC in every household, great. Empowering every person and organization on the planet to do and achieve more, even better. It's memorable. It tells the story. It tells what we are about. It tells us who we are about. And it talks about people. We are empowering others with our services and products. And so are you. So are you. And Generation Z, who's coming in shortly after Millennials, they can smell fake a mile away, right? They know if you're authentic as a brand. They've researched way before they even begin to go to your store or look you up on Facebook, on your Facebook page. They've known about your brand, and if you don't show up authentic in your space, they're not going to become a customer. And Gen X, my generation, and perhaps even baby boomers also have used social media and do use social media to understand better what they want or continue to like about a brand. And if they don't, they may drop it. Customer loyalty It's not that it's no longer exists, it doesn't exist. It's that it changes according to the perception that customers have of the brand. And social media and content, digital content, play a huge role in that perception. So how are you positioning your brand effectively in the market? How are you telling the story? Are you taking your customers through a journey? Do they understand every time? Are you reminding them every time why you exist? Why they should buy this versus this? Why does this make them better? That's the story. And it's about them. It's not about us. One of the things that we're doing at Microsoft as well is that we're considering our climate. I don't know if you've seen this this commercial, this ad that took place a few months ago, and it's by Pepsi. I don't know if you recognize who she is. So she's an influencer, Kardashian. Her name is Kylie Jenner, and she was picked up by Pepsi to do an ad commercial. And the entire presentation of the ad, the point, the story was that she would walk through a crowd of protesters in America, of course, and she would actually walk all the way with a Pepsi in hand, and she would hand it over to a police officer. And of course, the brand attempted at being relevant in a climate where today's societal disparities are being taken to the streets in America. And so it's a very charged environment here. So a brand did this hoping that they would tell a good story, that people would tune in to that story. And we saw a backfire, a huge backfire from something like this. Here's the progression of what happened in the story, and influencers began to speak. They began to protest on social media and talk about, wow, is this really what Kylie Jenner thinks, that you can just hand a Pepsi over to a cop and all the problems that exist racially, historically in the States will go away? When you tell your story, it's really important that you understand your audience. Every platform has a different audience on social media, and you have to understand where your customers are. A lot of brands that start out and start thinking about the way to tell a story, they think they could be everywhere. They should be on every platform. Should I be on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Snap and all of it? No, the answer is no. The answer is be where your customers are. Find your customers. Find out what they are. You have the customer base. So if they're millennials, yeah, they're probably going to be on Instagram. So you should probably go there. If they're an older audience, maybe Facebook. Again, you have to think about where your audience is in the climate of where you're taking place. What is relevant here may not be relevant. Of course, it's not relevant in another place. So is your brand global? And if you're attempting to be relevant globally, then some stories may not work. You have to think of storytelling like a puzzle piece, right? Every part of your story that you're telling, whether it's an ad, whether it's a tweet by your CEO, and it's a picture on Instagram, your customer is weaving that as a puzzle piece together, and they're making, it's like the algorithms. We do have those algorithms as well in our brain, and we're making those connections, and we're seeing the brand, and we're building and crafting that story ourselves. A great story, a good story, has a conclusion. However, a great story leaves the customer to make their own conclusion. So we don't go around telling, and the moral of the story is, we just give the knowledge. We give the knowledge, the story. We let them and remind our customers why we exist, why we do what we do through a great story, and let them make their own conclusions. So take them through a journey, make it exciting. And the best strategy then is to take those attributes and say, well, my main character is now going to be my customer. It's not me. I'm not the main customer. I'm not the main character. I'm the sidekick, right? I'm the Robin to the Batman. And our customer is number one. They are the central character. They're the ones driving the experience. And in essence, they are. Today's customer is connected, and they're savvy, and they're smart, and they don't want to be told what to do, right? They want to know so they can make their own decisions. So how do your stories educate and inspire So they will be tied in emotionally to what you do. So they will opt for your brand versus another. Tension points in a story or suspense factors are the pitfalls, are the challenges, the bruises. Your story, your brand story, should be human. It should have human attributes. And every human that I know, and every human that you know, including yourself, has gone through some pitfalls, has had some challenges, and has probably bruised up a little bit. And so has a brand. And before, we were afraid to talk about that. We wanted to show up winning every single time. Win, 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 win. And it worked before. It doesn't work anymore. In this digital age, in this transformation age, what works is heart. When we show up and we say, I was banged up a little bit. We messed up right here. But this is how we fixed it. And this is the learnings we had. And we share that out. And we share it, telling our customers, don't make that mistake. We made it ourselves. So learn from us. So we're being human and vulnerable. Our promise, the promise that your story makes, is your services. It's your products. It's saying, yeah, we messed up a little bit, but here's a solution we gathered. We created this platform to service us because we couldn't move all of our data to the cloud in one shot. So we decided to build something like this, data lake, Azure Data Lake, for example. So we are telling the stories of our pitfalls and our challenges, and then we're also saying, this is what we learned, this is how we learned, here's how you learn if you want to, and this is the services that we use, our own products. If you're not believing in your own products, your customers won't. If you're not showcasing what your own products are doing for your brand, your customers won't. The magic of the story, I'll tell you in a bit what it is. I'll leave that for last. But the conclusion, again, the conclusion is truly about what your customer wants to make it. Remember, your customer is the central character in your story. They are number one. They are number one. So, where do you even start? How do you get started if you haven't even started storytelling yet? Start with the end. What do you want your customers to walk out with? What do you want your customers to learn when they hear the story of your brand? What do you want them to be inspired by? That's the end goal. You want all these things. You have to ask yourself who your audience is, where your audience is, and how will that ending impact? And then you can build from the end back. Then you could say, okay, this is the end goal. This is the story, the finale of the story. These are the moments that got us there, transformative moments, pitfalls, challenges, successes, highs and lows. And this is how we got started, with a mission. Every brand starts with a mission, right? So start with the end. Start with the end. And remember, your story is your mission. I can't stress that enough. A lot of people want to go and tell other different stories. As long as the story is tied back to your mission, you're good. But be careful not to tell every story and the story kind of disperses and tapestry is broken. You want to build that tapestry. You want to make sure that every time you write content, again, whether it's an ad, whether it's a tweet, whether it's a Facebook post, whether it's a blog, whether it's a video, ask yourself, does this tie back to my mission? At Microsoft right now, we're working on 6 different focus areas and 11 initiatives to meet those focus areas. Every time we write a story as storytellers, we have to ask ourselves, which of these focus areas are we hitting and which initiative does it touch? And if it doesn't, back to the drawing board. That story is probably not going to be good enough. And we have an editorial operations board that actually will send us red tape. Nope, that's not going to work. That story is not going to work. We can tell stories all day about different things, but it has to keep to the main mission because your story in the end is the mission. Authenticity and vulnerability win every single time. Don't be afraid to show up human. It is when you show up human that you connect. It is the heart of the human that tells the story much differently. Can robots tell story? Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about a robot that I met about 2 months ago at Microsoft. So we have a whole bunch of robots walking around doing different kind of things. It's kind of scary. It's like Back to the Future. And I met this musician robot a couple months ago, and he was plugged in on stage after the jazz band had joined the stage. So he came in the middle, he was plugged in, and as soon as he perked up because he woke up, right? he started listening to the music. And so there was jazz playing, there was a live band, and we were all watching this concert. And so he tunes in and he starts, kind of like understanding the music that was going on. I don't know if you know a little bit about music, but jazz is probably the hardest type of music to play. It's just because the chords and the arrangements are so intricate, right? And the instruments have to kind of just keep this really hard rhythm. But the robot, was listened in, and within a few minutes began to play. They had a xylophone to the side, it had a keyboard, and it just started going, started playing, and before you know it, a few minutes later, this robot begins to build his own chords that we've never heard before, chords that you would never hear before, that a human can't possibly put together. Because in his brain, in his machine brain, he had no limitations. And he had no time frame. His job as a robot was to just build music, and he did on the spot. It was incredible to watch, and I kept thinking about that. I kept thinking, how will we be replaced, right? If these robots are doing so many great things with no human error. The only thing that will keep us going in this digital marketing space beyond automation is our heart. So your brand, if it's not storytelling, it runs the risk of not making it, because the robots are here, the machines are here, and they're taking over. Stories are for the audience, not to the audience. And there's a big difference. When stories are to the audience, you just drop knowledge and you go, you walk away. If it's for them, you understand who they are. Back to the audience, you understand who your audience is. Who are you targeting? Who do you want to talk to? Who is the story for? What language do they use? What keywords do they use every day? Are you speaking their language? When you're telling stories for your customer, not to the customer, you find them. You're not afraid to go on the social channels, even if you haven't before, because that's where they are. You have to go get them. You have to go see them. When you were a child, right, and your mom, your dad, if you were lucky enough, both, would come and tell you a story, they would probably walk into your room, right, and sit in your bed to tell your story. They came to you. Same concept. Stories come to people. So you have to find where your customers are. They're for the people. And you got to focus on the long term. You have to understand that these new methods of marketing are just beginning, and it's not going to happen right away. You're not going to get immediate ROI, It's going to be a process, and you're going to find your own voice in the story as you begin to tell that story. So you have to think about it long term. You have to think, it's going to take a couple months, it's going to take a couple years, it's going to take a couple before you actually show yourself up the way that you need to, the way that you want to. So it's important that you remember that. It's important that you remember that your story is your mission, and that you are the storyteller. We are all storytellers. And we got to give ourselves permission to do that. We got to give ourselves permission to drive a different way of marketing today, because our customers are smart, because our customers are saturated with content every 5 seconds on social media. And the one thing that's going to make them stop is a real, authentic story about your brand, about people that drive your brand. People don't want to meet Microsoft. They want to meet Miri from Microsoft, right? We want to know the people behind the brand. Who is doing that? Who's making things happen? And that makes us curious. That's what's always made us curious. And that's what's preserved humanity, is the stories about the people. And it's our own story about humanity. So I encourage you to build your story. I encourage you to connect with others who are building the stories, to learn. There's so many resources out there about brand storytelling, and I would love to be one of them to you. If you need me, you know where to connect with me. I'm also on LinkedIn, Miri Rodriguez, and I'll be more than glad to show you different ways that you can start building your story, that you can continue if you've already started, and you can improve that story if you need improvement. It is a work in progress. Social media and digital marketing, and the marketing space in general, it's changing, ever changing. It's a process, and it's a method, a practice that continues to change, especially now in this digital stage. So if we think that we got something put together, 6 months later, that strategy may not work for your customers. And that is the truth. I mean, we're seeing continuous changes in our social platforms. We're seeing continuous changes on trends that are happening in the digital world. So we have to stay afloat. We have to stay on top. We have to be leaders in that. In order for us to do that,
Yeah, very much.
is through the
We heard the
story.
entire
The
story.
story has to make your customer number one. I promise you. Number
So,
one.
yeah, Miri, but I have a quick,
Thank you so much.
immediate
I'll take
question to
questions.
you. Did we discuss about the magic?
Ah, good question. I thought somebody was going to pick it up. That's great. Thank you for asking that question. I left that out on purpose. The magic. The magic is your heart. It's what makes us human. And I've seen the transformation in our engineers at Microsoft who have opened up to tell their own stories and their personal stories, heart to heart with our customers, and that has made the difference. You can tell great stories and using all the attributes that I just
Well,
mentioned,
the
but
magic
if
was
the
very
heart is not
surprising.
there, then
And
it's
we're
not
going to
going to be as
bring,
effective. So every story
we are
that
going to
has
bring in
heart
our
is what's
auditorium
going to
live.
differentiate a good story from a robot story, because a robot can probably tell that one story without heart.
Okay. So, meanwhile, to all our participants online, if you have any questions, we have Miri with us now. So,
Yeah, I see a question posted. Hi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Monera. Um, I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation. So the question, I get this question a lot, by the way. What is the difference between telling stories and actual content? Can you please tell me the difference between the two? Absolutely. So what is content versus a story? Content is everything, right? So I'm just going to show you content. This is content, right? So it's Evian, and it's talking about where I found this bottle, where this water is made. That's content. It's not necessarily telling a story. A story would be if here, instead of saying our ingredients only come from nature, right, tells a story about how they actually grab this water from the Alps. That's the difference. The difference between content and saying where they got this water, okay, it's from the French Alps, and here's the ingredients. That's a content. Story would be in 1988, an explorer was in the mountains of the French Alps and tasted the most delicious water in the world, and he discovered Evian. That's a story. That makes sense? It brings the heart of the content. It adds the person, it adds the character to the story.
well, that was interesting, and to know the difference between story and content. So, I do have this question. I'm not sure if this is very personal to you. It's about Microsoft. All right. So, just in case, if Microsoft required to launch any new product, okay, how do you start the story? Well, maybe about.
Yeah, so how do we tell stories is a great question. It really depends. It depends on the type of story. It depends on the content that we want to drive in the audience. As Microsoft drives its content based on products. So our company it's programmed, it works in different cross-functional teams. So we have an Office team, we have Azure, we have Xbox, and of course when you think about these audiences, the Xbox audience is way different than Azure or Office, right? So each team, each product team drives a vision for each audience because they are different audiences. Right now, videos are, I would say, across the board, not just at Microsoft, taking on a force that we haven't seen before, especially now that our, the social channels are supporting vertical video. And so that's really making a huge difference in how we're presenting content. We love video, consumers love video. When I say we, it's consumers, because it's just real time. It feels like I don't have to read anything. I don't have to think about it. It's lazy, right? It's fast. And so video is really dominant right now in the form that we deliver content. However, you always have to think about, again, the audiences. Our audience is very broad. We are a global company. So besides video, we take the time to actually repurpose content. So if we create a video, we might create, and we do create, a blog that talks about that video and insert that in there. We might create a campaign that introduces the video or talks about the behind the scenes of creating that video. So we take one piece of content and we see how many other ways we can build a story around that one piece of content effectively. We can actually use it as additional pointer blogs. Example, if I create a video about digital transformation, that's a broad subject. And so I can talk about many products within that. Then I'll talk about different products around that one content. So I just creative ways to think about the way that we deliver content. And it all depends, again, on our strategy, on who we're targeting. The most successful campaigns we've seen at Microsoft have been around Microsoft Life. And that kind of took a life of its own about 2.5 years ago, I would say, where we had a campaign called #Microsoft Life, where we were encouraging employee advocacy at Microsoft, and we're telling our customers, our employees, to just tag, on social media and hashtag Microsoft Life whenever they were at Microsoft doing something cool, eating something cool, just kind of, the Microsoft Life. And that just became so big because it was talking about people, right? And again, back to people. So just everybody tuned into that, so much so that today the Microsoft Life is actually the handle in Twitter. It's actually its own campaign, its own content storytelling of its own. We have it on Instagram, Microsoft Live handle. We have a Twitter, Microsoft Live. Microsoft Jobs became Microsoft Live. So you could see the power of how one story changes, the life of the many stories at Microsoft or in your brand. So don't be afraid to explore the different ways. Video, absolutely. You will ask, well, of course, again, Miri, you have all this budget that we don't. You're Microsoft, we're not. I get that. But the beauty about video today is, and the audiences that we have today, is that they actually enjoy and love homemade videos. And devices like these can give us really cool, high definition stories. So don't get so boggled down. You don't have to create a huge HD production. It's cool if you can, it's cool if you can. In fact, we do a mix of both, because the raw video, the live streaming, the things that really take place that seem most genuine are those that are most genuine and authentic, and they're not so produced. So videos is a great way. Blogs are still happening, believe it or not. And the reason we use blogs, it's because we are not, we create a landing page. So it's really important that your content lives somewhere, that your stories live somewhere. We have Story Labs, we have IT Showcase, we have different ways, different sites where Microsoft stories live, and you can see them all. And the reason for that is if we ever want to go back to that and create another story and point back to that, we can find that story. It's also good for SEO. So, think about, if I just drop a video, how is that going to show up as legacy content? What if somebody can't see the video? What if it's in a site and it's whatever? At least you have the blog. So think about how you can, keep a legacy content that will remain for SEO as people think about.
All right. Thank you, Miri. And I also want to add on, based on our speaker, this morning we had a Naomi who brought in about personal branding, and she picked up example on Kylie Jenner, and
Okay.
definitely, absolutely, you through your video as well on Pepsi ad. I have a question here based on that. Do you have any tips about?
Yeah, so that's always a question I get asked. How do I make my content viral? I don't think there's a specific formula to make content viral, because there are so many factors on what makes something go viral. It could be great content, and we've created really content and it's flopped, nobody saw it. And then we've created one blog that was just a blog, and then it got picked up by Forbes, right? So because a journalist saw it, and it went viral. So there's so many factors in what viral means, because the audience says it's a climate that has to be a perfect alignment of things. It's alignment of stars for something to go viral. But what you can do for your content to have the best success in propensity to become viral, that it's positioned the best way to become viral if all the other factors line up, it's to make sure that the content it has a formula. So the formula is this: it has to be newsy. It has to be news, something that the people have not learned yet, people haven't seen before, and it has to be a little provocative that way. That it just feels like extra. Read the news, right? That's a factor. The second one, it has to be inspirational and relatable. People have to relate to something. Like when you think about something you've seen that's been gone viral, it's because you've related to it. You've seen something that makes sense, that makes you laugh, that makes you cry. Your heart has been touched by that. So it has to be inspirational. And lastly, it has to be educational in somehow. It has to relay a message that you needed to hear. And so viral content, when you see when it's viral, organically viral, you'll see these three attributes, these three kind of magic potions, formulas that position the content well for that. And if it has those three ingredients and the other factors play in, then you have a lot more opportunity for that content to go viral. Again, you can position it the best way. It doesn't mean it's going to become viral. It really has to come in at the environment, at the best environment, and people have to tune into it at the perfect time. So, but you do your part always. Make sure that your content is good, it's clean, it's authentic, and that it follows those.
All right, Miri. So other than our online participants, I also want to introduce you to our live audience at Jamaica Auditorium. Hi, Debbie.
Yay, Jamaica!
Here, we'll have any question? Anybody from what we had heard earlier? Yes, we have one from Barrington.
You said you work with a Microsoft storytelling IT department. Yes, there was some content on Facebook. It's been on for about a year. I don't know if you know anything about it. They write storytelling with animation, and their first content was about Van Gogh. It's a painting. Now, it was so well produced that it got 21 million viewers. And it's just a painting that is animated, and it goes on and they build a story about it. And so my question is, we do have contents, and Jamaica have contents. But if I were someone that has a content, what are the first 3 things that I would do to start the ball rolling? Would it be a platform? Would it be a video content? Or would it be an animation, then you build the 3 together?
It's a great question. Great question. Thank you for that. So that audience, I mean, that group that produced this one story is actually on the brand side. I'm on the IT side. So it's we work very closely together, of course, but as you can imagine, Microsoft is very big. So there's a lot of people behind our storytelling. There's a lot of storytellers at Microsoft. In fact, we have over 4,000 worldwide storytellers. So a lot of people behind this strategy of content. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm so sorry that you didn't get to hear the entire presentation, because some of that really was touched in the presentation about where to get started with stories. Do I start with the platform? I said in the presentation that your story starts with your mission, and where you get started is the end. The end is where what you want your audience to walk away with when they hear your story. So don't start with the animation yet, or the type of video, whether it's going to be the type of content, whether it will be a written form or a video or a picture. You really need to think first about the landing of that content and where it goes, because that's where your audience is. So the platform is one of the things you got to consider. First, you have to understand that every story you're going to write, every story you're going to tell should tie back to that mission that is your brand. Why your brand exists, what makes it good, what are they offering your customers that somebody else is not? What is the differentiator of your brand, of your personal brand, of your story in general? What makes it different? And from that, you decide the platform. The platform is decided by your audience. If you are targeting millennials, you're going to go to Instagram. If you're targeting an older audience, you're probably going to go on Facebook. I would not ever recommend that you go all out to all platforms without being able to handle all of them. Master one first, and then go to the next and go to the next, and see if you have the bandwidth and you have the resources to complete. Because what's happening today is that social media is being used not no longer to market, and that hasn't happened for a few years. It's really more about engagement. So once that content is out there, you need to expect that people are going and should engage. And that's what you want, engagement. That's the ROI, it's engagement. So you have to be prepared to manage that engagement. People asking questions, people connecting with your brand, people talking about your brand. What will you do and how will you manage that is really important for you to know. It's really important for you to have that strategy written down. Then the form of content. So at Microsoft, we sit down at an editorial board meeting and we have planners. And we first think about the theme of the story. We talk about something called a creative brief. Hey, Miri, I have a story about accessibility. What we're doing at Microsoft to make our technology accessible. Great, what's the story? Well, we have a lady that just came in. This is a true example that just came into the role. She came from the government. She worked in the government for so many years, and she just wanted to make sure that she was making strides to make our technology accessible, but she wasn't making a lot of headway as much. She wanted to come in Microsoft and do something here. How do we make our stories accessible? How do people with disabilities access our content, access our resources, access our products? Do they all have that accessibility? So we began to think about the form of content, because the reality is, if we created a video and a person was blind, they could not see the video, right? And we were talking about accessibility. So we have to think about your audience. You have to think about where you're dropping the story. So the form of story, whether it's video or not, how does it land in that environment or that platform? So again, it's all about your audience. What works for one brand may not work for the other. What works for one content may not work for the other. And again, you can do 1 and 2 and 3. You can explore all forms, but you have to make sure that all of them tie in as a tapestry to the end story, right? Which is the goal,
All right, do
is
we
the
have any
mission.
other questions?
So it's like a
Yes, we have
puzzle
one
piece
here
that's being
from
built.
Shelley.
All these
Do we
stories
have
are
any
creating this
questions
beautiful
on
piece
my left?
that is telling the story of your
In
brand.
the middle of the auditorium?
I hope that helped.
On the extreme left? And no, not yet. All right.
All right, so what are your thoughts on the length of the video or even a blog post? There's a lot of conversation around, the fact that persons
Yes.
are not going to sit for however long to watch the video. It needs to be short and sweet. But I personally sit and watch an entire
Great
video
question,
for
and
over
beautiful
an hour if the
glasses.
content is interesting.
So we actually do both.
What kind
We
of
will create
guidelines do you
an
use
entire
when you're determining
a
the
long
length?
form video length that could probably go an hour at times, and that content can be very deep technical. We get into very deep questions about our technologies, and then we break it down, and then we position it in different channels broken down. So we'll actually edit it in 5-minute increments, and we'll create a series. And then the long form lives on its own on a platform like YouTube, a landing page or so. So if you want to see the entire video, you can. And we promote both, right? So we promote snippets of the video that are broken down. We actually are strategic about how the video is going to cut in different, every 5 minutes basically, so that it can have its own standing 5-minute short form video. And then all of it really comes together in 1 hour per se, sometimes even 2. And that long form video will actually live on its own, and we market it on its own as well. And that is another way that you can actually repurpose content, because that long form video, we don't market it everywhere. Pros, who are our audience for this case,
Okay.
they would love to watch it. They're waiting for it. They want to know, sometimes they're a case study, their connection or a webinar that we're producing, or an interview with our CTO, and they're really interested in that kind of content. And some other people are not interested in the entire technical piece, but they want to know a little bit about what our CTO said, right? So we take those snippets. So explore your audience as well. Find out what they like, and you're right. If you like the content, you'll continue. And so if you have, there's ways that you can actually say, for more, actually make it a pointer video to continue watching the whole thing. So there's ways that you can creatively not saturate content, but also give options to those people who would continue to watch that video and consume the whole thing.
All right. Thank you very much, Miri.